Hey guys, I'm Nakunj, and this is going to be a new series where we talk about history and we drink a nice cool glass of milk. For today's episode, we'll be talking about the peopling of India, and the milk that we have is some standard, like 2% great value milk from Walmart. Let's get started. Let's go back to 1983, in Punjab, specifically in the village Rawat, Pakistan. British archaeologists were digging at the site for artifacts and evidence of prehistoric human life, and they came across some tools dating to the Upper Paleolithic around 45,000 years ago. They called the site Rawat Site 55. However, one of the archaeologists paired together with a geologist to survey the area around Rawat Site 55, and they struck gold in another site nearby. They found pebble tools dating back to around 2.2 million years ago, with ample evidence of modifications like chipping and striking. This is the earliest evidence of hominins outside of Africa, and these tools were most likely used by Homo erectus, an earlier form of Homo sapiens. A year prior, in 1982, a fossil of a hominid skull was found on the banks of the Narmada River in Madhya Pradesh, India. This fossil, known as the Narmada human, is a decayed partial skull cap of a female hominid, likely belonging to either a Homo erectus or an early form of Homo sapiens. Dating around 300 to 500,000 years back, it's the earliest known hominid fossil from South Asia, and shows that archaic humans were already living in India far before our modern version of Homo sapiens ventured into the Indian subcontinent. These findings are super important, because it shows that while often overlooked as a birthplace of civilization in comparison to Eastern Africa and the Middle East, India was an ancient hub of human history, with many questions left unanswered. Since the Indian subcontinent today is full of geographical extremes, with glaciers and mountains to the north, desert to the west, and extremely wet weather to the east, there's not as much archaeologically preserved evidence as Africa. But with the few pieces of prehistoric evidence that we do have, we can start to piece together the ancient narrative. It helps us raise new questions about everything, from evolution to continued culture and remembered stories. So, keeping in mind that there were human-like beings already in South Asia, let's fast forward a few 100,000 years. "74,000 years ago, in what is now Sumatra, Indonesia, there was a super eruption. The prehistoric Toba volcano exploded in what is known as one of the largest eruptions in Earth's history, with over 1,000 times more volcanic ejection than this 1980 Mount St. Helens eruption. This eruption created a massive crater in the earth beneath where it stood, which created the largest volcanic lake in the world, present-day Lake Toba in Indonesia. The super eruption caused a massive blanket of ash to drift around the globe, severely impacting South Asia and the Indian Ocean. By covering the fertile soil with layers of volcanic ash, Indian jungles, vegetation, and plant life were almost entirely decimated. On top of this, the volcanic eruption released sulfur aerosols into the stratosphere, which reflected and scattered incoming sunlight to the globe. Soon, the global surface temperature dropped rapidly without pure sunlight to heat it, and Earth was plunged into a volcanic winter, which decimated the population of Homo sapiens around the world. The Southeast Asian eruption is important because it provides evidence for two theories of the peopling of India. The question becomes, were the people in India at the time of the Toba eruption people descended from the likes of the Narmada human, so this means genetically originating in India, or were they descended from African migrants coming into the Indian subcontinent post-Toba? To be honest, there's no answer for this question right now, but there is some evidence for both. The evidence that shows that there were people living in India pre-Toba comes from Jwalapuram in Andhra Pradesh, where an archaeological site led by Oxford researchers showed a layer of early toolkits, then a layer of ash from Toba, but beneath that, there were more human tools and hearths. The issue is, no human tools were found, so we have no evidence on the true origin or genetic makeup of these people, but this shows that the early pre-Toba humans may have survived Toba. But the evidence of Indians being descended from African migrants is ingrained in the genetics of all existing South Asians today. The most relevant gene that points to this is the mitochondrial DNA haplogroup L3 that originated in East Africa around 70,000 years ago. And as they migrated to South Asia, this L3 haplogroup descended into haplogroups M and N. Even now, L3 is very commonly found in East Africa, and M and N are very common in the Indian subcontinent. Around the time of the Toba explosion, a small group is said to have set out from East Africa and crossed the Red Sea, then the coastline of the Middle East, then Iran, until they found India. This group's movement is called the Southern Dispersal, and they mingled with others and created a major settling point in India. Groups from here then followed the southern coastline of Asia and settled in Southeast Asia and even Australia. What's interesting is that the Australian Aboriginals are actually descendants of these southern dispersal settlers that came into India. My guess is that a different form of Homo sapiens existed in the Indian subcontinent. I'm not sure for how long, because all we have as evidence is a Narmada skull cap from a potentially archaic Homo sapiens from like 500,000 years ago. But at the very least, we can say that some form of early Homo sapiens existed in South Asia since 500,000 BCE. Further evolved forms of these Indian hominids may have been the source of the tools from Jwalapuram, but I predict that the majority of them, if not all, completely died out after the Toba eruption. But very soon after the population collapse, migrants from Africa must have made their way east and mingled with others on their way, so that in around 65,000 BCE, India would be full of people again, but these ones with the M and N mitochondrial haplogroups. But this still doesn't answer everything. According to genetics researcher Stephen Oppenheimer, almost all the maternal lineages in Central Asia, the Middle East, and Europe today can be traced to 4 mitochondrial haplogroups, and all of them are shown to originate in South Asia, according to his hypothesis, after the African migration. If Oppenheimer is correct, this shows that the Indian subcontinent wasn't just a stop on the road for these early migrants. Rather, it was probably a launch pad for further human movement into the rest of Eurasia. Essentially, thousands of years after African migrants left Africa, they came across a fertile post-Toba India, settled and genetically evolved within India, and then groups radiated outward from there, carrying South Asian mitochondrial genetics north and west. So overall, our genetic and archaeological evidence shows that the Indian subcontinent was most likely a genetic cradle of modern humanity, a place that survived after the destruction of the Toba volcano, which wiped out millions of years of history, but also a place that allowed humans to thrive and pass along their genetics as a maternal legacy to the rest of the world. Thanks for watching this video. Next time, we'll cover the ancient ancestral South Indians and neolithic settlements like Mehrgarh that led to the eventual Indus Valley Civilization. See you guys later. Bye. Oh, also, I give the milk probably like a 5 out of 10. I don't know, it's probably the most standard milk you could get out there, but next week we'll try something different.